Aries are icy, living life nicely, very precisely, living divinely, manifest wisely. All I know is that I've been living for the sightseeing. Been around the world for a visit, first class ticket. Man, I'm in it, man, I'm winning. I don't have no limit. If I want it, then I get it. If you want it, then you get it. I ain't never done finished. I'm a giver. I've been giving first place. I've been winning 6 shots and spinning, but I still keep ripping and I still keep hitting 2 ways. I'm splitting all in. I'm risking it all. Yeah, I don't ever fall. Yeah, but if I do, I get back up, stand tall. Yeah, I want it all. Yeah, a good life. I don't think small. Yeah, I'ma be big one day. See me taking off runway. My name up in light someday. Looking at a crowd that loves me. Yeah, I came here to play.
Life is one I'm choosing. I don't stop, I keep moving. Just watch me as I prove it.
I'll be big one day. See me taking off runway. My name up a light someday. Looking at a color loves me. Yeah, I came here to play.
I create the life I want now, and no, I never back down.
Okay, one more time. I saw you flashing, but I didn't hear it.
Let's go, let's go. Time to grind, get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime. Signing on the dotted line, cashing checks left and right. That's the way I'm living life. I feel alive when I got a goal in sight. Chip away, I gotta fight. Ain't nobody else in sight. Man, I think I see the light. Yeah, that shit is so bright. Follow me, I got the guide. See you on the other side, son.
Ain't nobody know what I've been through. Ain't nobody know what I can't do. I'm ready to go into battle. I'll put on a show, razzle dazzle. I'm about to take off. Never gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top. No, I'm about to take off. Never gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top. Yeah.
So get out, right up, Tuesday. You can try it today, yeah. 'Cause I love, can't stop, don't waste, don't middle, place, yeah.
Gotta stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah. Gotta stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah. Gotta stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah. Gotta stop till I'm chilling at the top.
I'm a vet, cause I work with every breath. Man, I love the taste of sweat. I won't have any regrets. They get upset when they trying just to rest. And I'm still right at my desk. Make them all feel so pressed. Yeah, but that's the test. If you wanna be the best, it ain't easy, it's a mess. If you wanna have success, you keep going like possessed. Drive it deep into your chest. Every failure is a test. Learn the most, leave the rest.
Ain't nobody know what I've been through. Ain't nobody know what I can't do. I'm ready to go into battle. gonna show razzle dazzle. I'm about to take off, never gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top. No, I'm about to take off, never gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah.
So get out, wait, to stay. You can try it another day, yeah. 'Cause I love, can't stop, the race, dog middle, place, yeah.
Gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah. Gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah. Gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah. Gonna stop till I'm chilling at the top, yeah.
Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. And I can see it's midnight. I cannot live without you. I'm terrified to see you. Hiding in the darkness. Colder when it's twilight. And I've been feeling restless. Too close, too much, too far gone. I'm yours, you're mine, too far gone. I'm leaving too far gone. I'm feeling too far gone. Too far gone. Can you see me breathing? Standing here without you. And I can see it's midnight.
We are live, ready to roll. Oh, and I just as of course I do this, I accidentally give the reveal away already, as I guess my settings didn't save. But as you can all see, here is our second man on the podcast, Cal. Cal, thanks for joining me.
Nice job keeping it nice and quiet, locked down.
Right, we spent all the time and all the work trying to make sure it was hidden. It's gonna bring you in and everything, but unfortunately didn't make it happen. I know your dad's probably gonna be a little upset that he didn't get to hear the Stephen A. impression. Maybe that'll have to.
Let me get a little comfy in my seat before I start doing all that. But I do appreciate you asking me to do the co-host job. I know you did ask the Pope, and he did decline because of schedule constraints. But I guess I'll try to do my best in his place.
Yeah, I think that that sounds like a good idea. And good, just so everyone knows too, Cal and I had plenty of mic checks and audio checks beforehand, so I'm hoping everything sounds all right. If not, obviously feel free to throw some in the chat or DM us or something. But anyway, this is the crew that we're gonna start the year off with. At least I've had a couple of other possible options down the road for a third man to come on with us. So we'll maybe have to discuss that as we move along. But welcome to the ABL podcast, guys. I asked Alan kind of earlier on in the off season if this was something I could kind of take over and do something with the rankings, because I thought it would be kind of fun. And when I reached out to Cal kind of with the idea of doing it, we just kind of took off with it and ran with it. So we're hoping we got some cool stuff. As always, open to feedback. We are certainly not doing this for the money. We do this because we love the league. So kind of how we're going to do things tonight is we have a few different topics that we're going to talk about. For the most part, we're going to look over contracts really quickly, just kind of some ins and outs of what we saw. And then we're going to take a look at the rankings. I know everyone's been anticipating what those are going to look like. So we'll kind of go over those. We'll take a look at the player pool quickly. We're going to stay away from talking about specific players. I think that's something that we were both pretty adamant about doing. We don't want to try to sway the auction in any way, shape, or form, but just more so some positional observations that we saw. And then we have a couple of cool things to kind of end it. The debut of Cal's, maybe we'll call it your spicy tier list. I don't know. Maybe someone else will have to come up with a better name than that, but we're going to take a look at that. And then we each have a hot take, one more hot take for y'all before we go into the auction. So kind of to start it off, Cal, if it's good with you, I pulled up, we actually need to thank Joe because he provided us with the screenshots of all the contract extensions. So I kind of have them broken up 5-year, 4-year, 3-year. So I'm just going to transition us kind of over to my shared screen here, and I'll bring up, can you see the
I was trying to see how long we could go without having to bring it up, but I cannot see your screen.
All right. So
I was really doing my best.
I gotta figure that as we're talking about it. I'm thinking about
frantically clicking buttons around here.
What if I do that in Discord and I share my screen with you? Is that a little bit better? Can you see it there?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Let's go. Let me just shift. Yeah, I can see you over in Discord. That works perfect.
Okay. Perfect. So I have I believe these are the 3 years. These are the 4 years, and these are the 5 years. So I figure we'll start maybe with our 5 years. I know that's kind of how we broke it down initially. So I'll just kind of, I guess, talk about the ones that I put in there. You can talk about the ones that you put in there.
Sure.
And then and go from there. So taking a look at the contracts just kind of overall, I thought it was a little bit interesting actually how many players didn't get contracts and ended up being dropped the night of the rollover. I can't remember if I shared with you, but I know I shared with multiple other league members how I have felt a lot better over the past few days, seeing some of the players go back into the pool as one of those teams that has a lot of money.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, kind of my first 5-year contract guy that I thought was interesting. And I guess we should clarify too, this is not like a love or a hate necessarily. It's more so just interesting things that we just kind of saw and we're like, oh, that's an interesting contract for that guy, maybe because of length, because of injury, whatever it might be. So for me, I had one 5-year that I thought was really interesting, and that was the White Sox giving Max Meyer a 5-year contract. And I think most people in the league would probably agree that, if you're going to get any kind of something out of Max Meyer, that contract is probably worth it. For me, and he's a Minnesota guy, so I'm kind of biased, but for me, it's all about the comeback from TJ, right? Especially at a younger age. Now, maybe that's a positive. Maybe because he's younger, he can bounce back from it and it won't be an issue. And Max Meyer for 5 years is, one of the steals that we're talking about for a while. But that was kind of an interesting one for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's got the pedigree. He definitely has. His name precedes him in that way. But would I give him 5 years fresh off of TJ without much proven already going into his young career? Probably not. But that's the risk you got to take. And I say that as somebody who gave Shane Baz 3 years, and that's me just like rolling the dice. So I really can't judge this contract too much. But 5 is a long time. Yeah. It really is. But like you said, if you're going to get anything out of Max Meyer, it's going to be worth the money you pay him.
Yep, exactly. I think next was you, yeah?
Okay. So I got a couple here, actually. One was the Orioles. This one surprised me. It was Brett Beatty, which, I mean, again, top prospect that hasn't really shown everything that we were kind of promised. Maybe the pop hasn't been there. He still has an OPS like under 600. And again, no power, speed really that's been shown at the MLB level so far. And to give him 5 years, again, it's a controlled price. It's if he's an everyday player, even if he's not what was promised, you can still get by with how much you're paying him. But to kind of put your eggs in that basket, I don't know if I would do 5 years. And another one I have is DL Hall, which is another White Sox contract, and this is another 5-year. So far, has really worked mainly in relief in the Orioles bullpen, and that's just out of necessity. It wasn't like they couldn't find a spot for him.
Yeah.
He's been injury prone somewhat throughout his minor league career. And this is a little tidbit I had seen. It's just like in his Fantrax bio, But he's never topped 100 innings since his pro debut in
That's
2017.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
and to give a guy who's never had a starter workload 5 years, to be a starter, I don't know if I would be doing that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I think maybe more towards the Beatty side of things. What was Hall's salary? Do you remember off the top of your head?
I don't. I think
It
it
was
was
probably low,
definitely
right?
rookie salary. It was
Yeah.
super low rookie salary.
So what's
Which
interesting?
again is like,
Yeah, exactly. It's super low, which to me that's kind of interesting because Meyer falls into this basket too, where and I know Duke has actually mentioned this multiple times, where the extension of these guys longer, especially the younger, cheaper guys, could in theory be worth it regardless of if they turn out or not, because even if you're in year 3, year 4 and you have to cut them, the penalty's not something that's going to completely derail your team, right?
Sure.
And I know Duke's obviously speaking to that a lot because he essentially has a team of players under $10, so it deeply impacts him, if not many other players like that too. But awesome. So let's move to the 4 years. Again, we kind of had 3 for each of these categories, which I think works well. So first one, Josh Jung out of Seattle. This was, again, one from me. I was surprised that he didn't get 5 years, to be honest with you, especially coming from Seth. I know he's talked before in the past, I think, about being someone who maybe gave out too many long-term contracts in the beginning. So I don't know if that maybe played a role in it. But Jung, as far as we've seen so far, obviously good fantasy player, cheap.
Oh, yeah.
If I remember correctly. So I was surprised he didn't get 5. Obviously getting 4 years, I don't think Seth's going to complain about that. But I was just surprised that he didn't get 5.
Yeah, because I mean, even if you're paying him, $18 because he's $8 right now. Even if you're paying him that much at the end of his contract and he sucks, it's not really going to be the biggest deal. That's not going to kill your team.
He's got a pretty
After
good floor, I would say too. His
Exactly.
sucking is
He's
probably not is a lot of most people's like really good. So
exactly, he's not like a Brett Beatty where again they're both are basemen that have pedigree, and Brett Beatty has not shown that. Young has shown that, and he's taken off on a really competitive Rangers team.
Yep.
So I probably would have given him the 5, but again, if I was in Seth's spot and I got burned that bad, I'd probably just never give a contract ever again. I think we should be shocked he gave 4.
I mean, Seth is already in chat in all caps talking about how he had to pause his shower to make sure that he protested this. But just to be clear, Seth, there's in no way a negative towards you. I had remembered, I feel like you saying that you had given a lot of bigger contracts earlier on, and it maybe wasn't something that now that you look back on it, you're like, oh, maybe I could have done that differently or whatever it was. But so I was just personally surprised that Seth didn't give him 5. But anyway, next up, I think it's you, right, Walker.
Yeah, I got a couple here. So we got this is another Steveism here. The Orioles, a Walker Buehler 4-year contract. Now again, like Buehler has the potential to be a $40 pitcher. And I think he's in the 20 range. Let me just verify that real quick. But, you give him 4 years. He hasn't thrown a pitch since 2022 in June. I mean, it's a risk, but man, could it pay off? He's $20 right now. Yeah, I looked him up. So he's currently 20. It's really just such a risky play. I kind of love it if it works out for him. But, yeah, you're putting some risk out there on a pitcher who, I don't think Walker Buehler is going to fall apart by any means. But, I mean, what are we going to get after a year and a half of just nothing? Just hasn't even thrown a pitch.
Yeah.
And then another one I have here would be Sam, the Rangers, Logan Gilbert on a 4-year deal. It's very hard to find, like an early 20s, cheap, top 20 pitcher. I probably would have given a max deal. If you can even factor in the fact he might get Tommy John, and you're going to be out a year of production.
So I'm looking at the 4s. I don't see Logan Gilbert on here. Are you sure he was?
I had him on my 2027. Maybe I had him.
Let's see.
I had his 2027. I looked at the previous year ABL to make sure he was signed, and he was like a first or whatever. So maybe.
So he was signed already. Like, did he get one last year?
Yeah, I took the previous year
Ah,
to make sure that he wasn't signed. It looks like he was on a contract. Maybe he already had a contract. But if
yeah.
that, I mean, I'm
Either
probably
way.
wrong. We can scrap that.
Well, yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
either way, either way.
yeah. Either way, it's still a contract you have to be stuck with.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still a bummer. I mean, knowing Sam, he probably didn't inherit the contract. But
yeah. Yeah. All right. Then let's move on to the 3 years. This one, honestly, probably the most interesting to me. I'm gonna make it a little bit. Hopefully, everyone can see that still.
yeah,
On the stream.
I need to
Okay.
fact check myself here.
But this one was probably the most interesting to me. I thought there were just some interesting names on the list in general. A lot of, outside of maybe the like Jose Barrios type players, which there aren't necessarily a ton of.
Right.
There's some relievers on this list. There's some names that are familiar, but not necessarily like guys that maybe haven't proven themselves, etc. The one that I had put on here was the Ian Anderson 3-year extension from Boston, which if I remember correctly, it was 2 years ago. He had a pretty good year with Atlanta, if I remember correctly, kind of a debut. I think he was like a 14 point per game type guy. But again, now coming off TJ, did not pitch super well again, maybe because he was hurt, whatever it might be. And he's going to Boston now too, like very interesting to me, at least. Not good or bad, just another kind of Max Meyer situation where you're looking at a younger guy hoping to be able to come back from it. So
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of a wild card. You have no idea what you're going to get with him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a risky play, but again, a lot of these contracts things are just you're throwing darts.
Yeah.
It's educated, but
100%.
it's still a gamble.
100%.
And then one I have here, Josh Hader. Looks
This
like he was
is
signed to a
so interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting.
a 3-year deal for Josh Hader. I asked the Hader and the Astros signed him. So I just don't ever see a situation where a closer, top of their game, gets signed to a ton of money, goes to a new team, and then keeps up that production. In the past, you've seen it with guys like Kimbrel, David Robertson, Roldis Chapman, Kenley Jansen, all guys that spent a long time on their current team and then moved on to a new team and just kind of started to fade away, especially when they start hitting 30.
Yeah, I mean, it's super interesting. Obviously, the team makes you think like, okay, if he's gonna be the guy, there's obviously going to be opportunities, right? But that's very interesting. And not only that, but coming from Gary gave 6 3-year contracts again, according to Joe's research. So obviously not afraid to give the guys. He gave Jordan Hicks 3 years too. So it just kind of locking up the bullpen.
I'm probably one of Hicks' biggest fans and his biggest haters, like within maybe like a year.
Yeah.
So I would not have done that with Hicks. I have not seen anything from him that can tell me he'll figure it out.
All right. Well, that kind of concludes our contract stuff. Some obviously very interesting things happen. I think how many total contracts did you give?
Oh, not very many.
Not
I
very-
barely
I
had
was
any guys. I think it was like 6 or 7.
Yeah, I only gave like 4. I don't even remember.
And as far as like combined years, I don't think anyone eclipsed like 3. I think Shane Baz was my longest guy with 3 years.
Yeah, I had a 3 in Joan Duran, and then I had a 5 in George Kirby. Shout out to Brendan. I think it's some very interesting stuff, but we'll see. Still, I'm like I said, I'm loving what the player pool is looking like.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, so next, let's move on to our rankings. Hopefully one of the most anticipated parts of this, but I think the first thing that we should do is just kind of explain what they are. And I'll talk a little bit about them before I bring them up here. But as I have always said with our power rankings, 2 things are very true about this. One, they are 100% numbers based. There is 0 emotion involved. So all of it is calculations. But secondly, those calculations are not perfect. They are not 100% accurate. They are not in any way, shape, or form meant to actually give the true rankings of our league. It is simply just something a fun that I randomly put together that I felt was in some way, shape, or form a way to, again, rank teams. And not to mention, doing this before the auction, there was only so much that we could go on. So again, that's going to skew the rankings a little bit. I know we both talked about trying to incorporate maybe like minors rankings somehow, but that was going to take dozens of hours for us to try and get through and get an aggregate of. So ultimately, we just decided to go through 2 different categories. The first was a current roster ranking, which essentially all that it was each team. And I finalized the rankings today, so it's everyone's current roster. I took the average of every single starter on those teams. So this doesn't include bench, and it includes the top 3 starting pitchers and the top 2 relief pitchers. And I just took the aggregate overall ranking, not even positional ranking. It was overall ranking among all MLB fantasy players from like 3 or 4 different places. And then they got a score, and then it was tallied. And so obviously the lower score you have, the better players you have, right? Because if you get a 1 for a player, that means you have the best player in MLB. But we all know that's Acuna, and no one has him. So that's the kind of current roster. And having said that as well, if you have someone who's in like the thousands, right? Like you have an awful second baseman or something like that, that's going to hurt you. Whereas if you don't have a second baseman at all, that actually could help you because there's some available in the auction that are actually good. So, and then the second one is the dollar per slot. Again, it's something that a lot of people in the league talk about and use, especially this time of year. But essentially all I did was I took money available divided by the number of spots left to fill. That's all there was to it. Not a whole lot of math outside of that. Obviously, these ranges can vary based on whether or not teams are going to draft 26 players or not. If a team's going in and they're like, I'm going to spend all my money and I'm going to leave with 22 players, that's going to obviously drastically impact their dollar per slot. So with that being said, here are the rankings. So, and I'm going to see, let me pull, I want to make sure this.
Well, yeah, while he's doing this, guys, listen up. Yeah, after everything he just said, all the work he put into this, all the thought and time, if you don't think these are like the official rankings, shut up. Like, obviously, these are the best rankings. There's no denying the ranking. If you have a problem with it, I don't want.
your mic broke up a little bit there at the end. I think
Oh man!
I think you were shaking your head like you're getting so emotional.
I was getting a little animated. I was getting a little fired up. Fired up.
At the end of the day, we're doing this for fun and we don't care, right?
Yeah,
so
absolutely not.
I think that looks okay on the stream. I'm hoping everyone kind of see it. I have it pulled up. It looks okay to me, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so essentially, again, here the higher scores are better, right? So starting at the top, for example, Texas, which I'm sure everyone will be, will laugh at or think it's ironic or whatever. But again, according to just these 2 metrics, Sam's current roster is, again, by average ranking, second best. And he also has the 4th best dollar per slot in the auction. So he's setting himself up really, really well. And what's probably not surprising is St. Louis and Pittsburgh are very close behind him. Given that they both have really good rosters as well, and their dollar per slot is obviously high as well. I just saw your dad.
Yeah, this is the worst day of my life. I didn't see these rankings until like right now.
So
what? Never mind. I take back what I said. These rankings suck. These are not at all definitive. These mean nothing.
I knew this was going to come up, and I knew we were going to say something about it because your dad's done a ton of work in the offseason. Yeah, he's done a good job.
He really has.
Bringing himself back up to the spot, and he's got a lot of dollar per slot. I that's what I was surprised by. I didn't realize that he was going to.
So was I.
Be
he outdid me.
Active in the auction.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big deal. But so again, just kind of going down. I'm up in there in the top 5, which obviously I was super happy with. But again, I think one thing to point out here is that like my current roster being at 24, like I only have 9 guys on my roster, right? But those 9 guys are, from a rankings perspective, are all pretty decent when it comes to ranking. So that's why my, again, current roster is higher.
Okay.
But that's also why I'm ranked a little bit higher, because I also have a good amount of dollar per slot. Whereas like if you look down here at Joe has really good roster, but from a
Can you
dollar.
zoom in a little bit, Tyler?
Yeah. Happy
Ryan,
to.
I guess, is having trouble seeing. Okay,
Yep,
cool.
happy
Sweet.
to. Let's see. Well, I thought I was going to be able to. Let's see. What if we go like that? Let's see if that's any better.
See if that works. Yeah, see if that works.
Yeah, I got the stream pulled up on the side here, so we'll see what.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, sorry, Brian. We'll see if it zoom. I just want to see it on the stream here, and then see if that gets any better. But yeah, so like.
Oh my goodness.
Joe, as I was saying, the 26 like current roster, obviously decent, but then the 9 for dollar per slot, that obviously hurts him a little bit, right? Again, just based on these two rankings. So, moving down a little bit more, what I thought was really interesting. So you look for kind of like the single digits that I think stands out, which I think is interesting. So like Joe's the first one, but then like John's someone who I think for the most part he was semi rebuilding last year, I think, if I remember correctly.
I remember he did a dump, and he had a very he had a plan.
Yeah, and doesn't have a
ton
ton of necessarily high value on the roster right now. But again, the $29 per slot, like he'll be up there with me and I mean no one's gonna touch Duke by any means, but he'll be up there with me and Sam and some other people in terms of amount of money being able to spend. This one I think is really, really interesting, and I think Adam will hopefully like this, but his team ranking wise is the best through aggregate rankings. So I thought that was really cool, but he's also got almost no money to improve his team. Now, some could argue, well, he doesn't need money to improve it. If he's got all these starter spots filled in, they're all good players. He doesn't have a whole lot to do. I think if it's me, I'm probably saying right now pre-auction, Adam is the favorite to win the East again. But a lot depends on, again, the auction changing. And then the another one here, like Miami, 4 but 26, ton of money to spend. Right, so kind of some of the biggest differences in that. That was the first kind of big takeaway I had, were some of the big splits. So the Phillies, obviously a 27 difference, best current roster, very little money to move. The Giants too, where are they at? They're down here somewhere. Yeah, right here, 28-4, very similar to the Phillies. And then the Tigers, which again I kind of already talked about. And then lastly, like down here, I'm sure, hope maybe Tom's watching. Not sure if he is or not, but. Current roster, obviously we all know where his current roster kind of is, not super great, but ton of dollar in the slot. Lenny, unfortunately, down here, not sitting necessarily in a great spot, but he's also been known to work some magic in the past, playing in the quote unquote toughest division in ABL. So we'll have to see what he does. So any thoughts kind of from you? I know as someone who's just kind of seeing the rankings and looking through it, what are your takeaways?
The Adam surprised me with the current roster, but looking at it, I mean, it absolutely adds up. Let's take a little gander here. We got as our number one team in the ABL. First of all, he's got every position is filled.
Yep.
I don't know how many teams have that. And even with them filled, there's a lot of good value in them, like a $5 Bryson Stott, like a Bo Naylor at $5, a $51 Juan Soto, very expensive, probably I think the most expensive at the moment in ABL. But still,
probably.
Going forward, I mean, even his pitching, like a Bradish, Mark Schmidt. I don't know how long he's going to keep Nola. I assume he loves Nola, so I think he'll still keep him.
Yeah.
But solid rotation, solid offense. At first, I was like, wow, I did not expect that at all. I thought it'd be like a Duke or somebody. But no, looking at it right now, it totally makes sense.
Yeah, I agree, and I'd be I guess I don't know what the right word is, but I'd be wrong in not shouting out Josh, who is in our chat right now.
Yes.
Just saw that. Josh, welcome, my friend. Glad to have you still here and invested in the ABL. That is the magic right there. I think as Mark was saying earlier, we're just missing Tony and Blue Jays Mark.
I know
from the past. Then we're
getting the band back together.
We'd have everyone, everyone back in here. But anyway, so just again, some cool rankings. I think one of my bigger takeaways too that I hadn't actually written down, but just looking at this is the scores. Like there's kind of a big top maybe 3-4 kind of close. Maybe you could throw Boston in there, but then like you start here. like 35 to 25, right? I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
I mean, how many teams is that? We're going 8 to 20. So you're looking at like 16 teams, right? Like 16 teams theoretically within a 10 score of each other. Like that's pretty crazy to me in terms
Yeah,
of where
I,
the standings could be and the fluctuation from the auction, etc.
I totally noticed that because I was trying to go through what kind of grows my eye in the auction, and there was just this massive cluster of teams that are kind of like, "Wah," and I was in that cluster, so I'm kind of see me there in the middle of the pack. But yeah, there was just I didn't have any real thoughts about it because it's just so open ended. They're kind of middling rosters with middling dollar per slot.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all going to depend on who they get, like what values in the auction, if there
Yeah.
really is any.
Yeah, well,
So
I was gonna say it's a decent transition spot, nice little setup softball toss there because that's where we're gonna go and talk about next is kind of the player pool, and again, not talk about specific players, but I think hit on
Sure.
exactly what you were just talking about is just kind of give this broad overview of positions and see where is there currently value from a points perspective, maybe where is there
Right.
not, etc. So I have Fantrax pulled up here, and I still got the stream pulled up too, so I'll just make sure I see how that looks once it comes up. But before we kind of go through position by position, I think I just wanted to start on this just all page and kind of look at the top 20. And again, to me, this has changed over the past few days. However, I don't even exactly remember when kind of some bigger names started to drop, but the fact that I'm looking on this page and seeing a lot of higher end names, and not to mention, like, you look at these salaries right here,
yeah,
so many of them 40 plus, right? Which, will all of these guys really go for that much?
yeah, it's
I
just
don't
not
know.
sustainable.
I don't
Even with
right?
how much
I mean,
money's there, it's just not going to happen.
it's hard. I have a hard time thinking it will too, but there's also people in our chat screaming that they will go for that much, right? So
Sure.
I don't know. It's just gonna be really interesting to me, I think, because I looked at those salaries and then I looked at, I feel like after everything was entered, we were at like almost 60% completed. So there's only 40% from the number of players left. And
Right.
I'm sure Joe has the numbers from how much money per player that is left, but yeah, I don't know. It would be interesting, very, very interesting. But all right, so let's start. Most underrated position in baseball, catcher. So and this was kind of something I know I had taken some information, just a very, very quick kind of look at each position. So maybe I'll go through and talk about kind of the things that I saw, and then maybe you can have your reactions to it if that sounds good to you. So catcher specifically, and again, I think a lot of this you can literally just look at the salaries. You have 3 20s and then literally no one else with anything higher than 1. And really,
Right.
you can look at the points too. I guess Jonah could be thrown up there into that group, but so super top heavy, and then really just kind of falls off a cliff. And I know something I mentioned, if Jeff's still listening, if he wants to publish those backup catcher rankings at any point in time, we can maybe do a little bit more with these 100 point guys down here. But yeah, that was about the only real takeaway I think from catchers is that it's incredibly top heavy.
Yeah, and an aging top heavy too, which
Yes.
is not the position you want to be old at.
Yes.
So yeah, it's kind of it's an odd place to be in. Makes me wish I kind of probably had more years on Adley Rutschman, but he's also expensive, so I probably was right in not doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's move on. Potentially to the most interesting position. I've heard. I'm sure you've potentially had some behind the scenes conversations with other guys in the league and stuff. But one very common theme about the auction that's come up for me is how deep first base is.
Yeah.
And I think probably the most interesting part to me is that yes, it's deep. I mean, obviously, just from a salary perspective, obviously tons of money has been spent there in the past. Age-wise, varies, right? I mean, there's, you get down here, there's some kind of older talent and stuff, but it's lots of different options, lots of different teams, right? I know Hoskins literally just signed with Milwaukee. Like, that's a really interesting signing. Big deal, a pretty good, I think, place for him to land. So like that, who knows what kind of I guess, role he could play there. But the most interesting part about this to me, though, was that if you look across the league at teams that quote unquote need a first baseman, there aren't actually that many compared to how many are out here.
Right.
And so to me, it kind of, leads me to believe like were teams in the past running like multiple first basemen, are like were a bunch of guys called up maybe this year that caused a lot of these guys to be let go. I'm not 100% sure.
Part would be, if someone's rehabbing, you just stick them over at first base. So it's kind of a little bit easier in this league to get eligibility at first.
True.
True. So that might be part of the reason, because if you have a liability at DH already, maybe you can't put them out there on the field. You just throw them at first, and that's what I've seen at least with guys that are rehabbing. So maybe there's more elite talent that's dispersed that normally wouldn't be from the outfield or other positions. Like even Bryce Harper, they just said, "All right, dude, you're full-time first base now." So I never thought I'd see the day that Bryce Harper played first. I mean, maybe not this early in his career.
Yeah.
Probably when he was like 34, 35. But I don't know if it's just a new way teams are doing things to preserve their bats. But that might be a huge reason of why we're seeing such a nice pool out there. It's just because they're.
I was going to say, let the young guys run around out there. And so,
exactly.
Earlier on in the career, you get guys to just shift there and
call it it's good. Not. Yeah, if their defense is average, why would I have them at risk in the outfield? There's so many outfield injuries. Harper's a good example of outfield injuries.
Yeah.
Why would I risk my investment by having him play average outfield when I can just have him play first and hit mash?
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I think that two pieces from the chat. Joe just mentioned that the ones that we were talking about from the catcher's perspective just means that they were $15 or less, which I forgot about that. That's a very, very good point. So the catchers weren't necessarily all ones necessarily. It was just that they were $15 or less, so that when they got dropped, then they go to one. So that makes sense. Appreciate it, Joe. And then Adam, I did arrange by ADP. Again, kind of interesting to look at. Doesn't change necessarily a whole lot, again, at least for first base, because I think it's so deep, right? Most of those top guys stay at the top, but still obviously interesting to look at. So anything else on first base?
No, I'm pretty sure we covered a good portion of it.
Second, so my kind of first takeaways, weaker than first, but still I felt a stronger pool of players. I also just kind of looked once you get past Gleiber and Jimenez, there's a lot of multi-eligibility, which I know is important in a league like this. Some teams, I guess, like it more than others, but that's just something I thought I noticed. And then I thought injuries are potentially an interesting kind of wrinkle at this position. Some guys who have an injury history, have been injured multiple times, who aren't really injured right now, and then guys who are coming off of injuries. Ren Giffel was having a great year last year, and it kind of got stopped short by an injury, I remember. So,
sure.
Yeah, just kind of interesting takeaway there.
And you can even see that the slow free agency market seems to be affecting like the middling bats, whereas like maybe there's some big tunas out there on the free agency market that maybe haven't signed.
Yeah.
And now you get the lower tier hitters just kind of waiting for that logjam to start moving. And that's where we're seeing a lot of blue flags on this list. So maybe by the time spring rolls around, we'll start seeing these guys lock in some spots, maybe add some value. But man, if you don't know where these guys are playing, like, what would I do at the bottom of this list? What would I do if they went to a team where they're maybe not playing every day? Like, I don't want to use players, but I will. Like, Tony Kemp, if he doesn't go back to the A's, I mean, where is he going to get consistent at-bats from?
Yeah.
So,
well, I look at Solano even, too. Like, I think I had traded for him at some point last year, and he was a guy in the Twins, who the Twins are known for using guys like him, 5 days a week at least, because he can play in all these kinds of different positions and all this kind of stuff. And there's rumors of him wanting to come back to Minnesota, which I think would be great for his fantasy stock. But just like you said, if he doesn't go back to that situation, he doesn't go to a team that likes to kind of rotate guys around, especially in the infield, his value goes away. Like that again, the Fantrax obviously sucks with these projections, but
probably ADP. I don't know if ADP would be any better. He's 806 on ADP, which I don't think is right either. But
he's not even on the.
Yeah, he's gone. See you later, dude. Bye.
So it's like, and again, that probably dropped right because he's not on a team. because people don't know
Yeah.
what is, so who's going to take a chance. My assumption will be he will be, hot take, he will be drafted at some point in the auction. I'm guessing.
Oh yeah.
Just because, wherever he does sign, he'll have at least some value, but
Yeah.
just kind of interesting there. Third base.
We don't have free agents out here. We don't have that in the ABL.
True. Very true. Third base. So big bats at the top for sure. Kind of like I think we talked about with first base, age is playing somewhat of a factor. Again, just if you look at just ADP here, 20, there's a couple of 29ers, and then other than that, everyone's 35 until you hit Ren Giffel. So very, very interesting there. And kind of like, I guess we talked about catcher a little bit, but this falls off pretty quick. Especially from like true third baseman, right? Like top guys are kind of your true third baseman. Once you get down here, you're looking at most guys that probably aren't playing a ton of third base necessarily. You're looking at, a lot of utility type guys.
Absolutely. And you can even see it in like that 100 position drop off from Nato to McMahon.
Yep.
And yeah, it's either you got it or you don't. Either you're elite or you're not. And I'd probably bank on a third baseman's production being a little more consistent, I guess. But because if he's playing third, he's going to stay at third. It's not like first base where they just get moved around, like I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Typically, a third base stay at third or get moved to first. That's really all you're going to see from him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do like it's really nice up top, but after that, it's kind of middling.
That's a interesting piece going into the auction too. Like, do these positions that are maybe a little more shallow at the top, are they going to command more money? We're going to talk about the position that clearly has the least amount to offer here in just a couple of minutes. But do those guys go for a lot more money because the scarcity is there? Or do people not want to spend a lot of money on the top guys because they want to be able to overpay a little bit for like 2 or 3 guys in the middle, right? Like, how are you gonna do that? But all right, last infield position here, shortstop. I only really had one takeaway from this, but I thought it was pretty interesting. There's a lot of bigger names here, a lot of very well-known players, as well as guys who are in the middle of their prime, kind of maybe getting towards the end of their prime, but a lot of talent, I thought, across the board, kind of, and again, all from true shortstops to multi-eligible guys. That was what I kind of took away from it.
Yeah. It's so deep. They got Wander Franco ranked 12th. That's how deep the position is.
Yeah.
But I don't even know. What's Tim Anderson doing on this list? I hate seeing that freaking name. I spent all that money on him last year. He did absolutely nothing for me. I don't even want to look at that again. But no, shortstop, listen, like usually the best guys on your team, the best athletes, best players are going to be playing the position. It's not a huge surprise that this is going to be one of the best pools going into the auction. And a lot of these names were expiring. So but they were huge, like whales on these teams.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious what the adjustment is going to be. Like, is Trey going to go for 50 almost? I don't see it happening again. There's not a lot of 50s out there.
It goes back to our first base question here, right? Like,
is Harper going to go for 50?
Is this going to happen? Like, man, I think the hard part about that is, I don't.
Yeah, but then it's like, where's the money going at the end of the day?
I don't think the value's wrong, right? Like that valuation, 30-teamer probably is not wrong, so to speak. But you also have to take into account age. You also have to take into account position and availability. I think that's one of the things that doesn't necessarily get talked about as much. Is okay, sure, Trey Turner is out there, Bo Bichette's out there, and they're great. But if they're the only two, do they go for more? Versus, right, like you have options here. Whereas, if you go, and again, not that catcher is the greatest example, but if you go to catcher, like if you don't get one of these 3 or 4, like are you just kind of screwed? And then you pay $1 for both your catchers and hope for the best type of thing? Or again, do you not pay and you're just okay with it?
Yeah, that's gonna be more than one person strategy too, because then it's like the Yogi Berraism. It's like it's so busy no one goes there anymore. That's what it's gonna turn into in the middle of the pack. I do worry you're gonna be paying a lot for mediocrity throughout this auction, just because there's plenty of money available. There's plenty of talent, but we've all been burned, I think, by a large contract, so we kind of know our limits.
Yep.
What will that limit be? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. We're deep enough into this where we kind of know what's going on, but because of that, it's the unknown because we haven't known what's going on the entire time.
Exactly. Exactly. Literally could not say it better myself. Okay, left field. Really interesting position here. However, the one thing I noticed, a lot of big names again, a lot of names that people recognize, people know, spend a good amount of money on, but a lot of these top guys are left field only right now, which I don't know if this is right or wrong. This is completely off the top of my head. I literally just made it up. But it feels like to me it is harder to find multi-eligible outfielders than it like, and I don't mean like a guy like Jeff McNeil who plays like second and then left. I think it's harder to find guys who play like left, center, right, or left and right, versus someone in the infield who plays second, third, and short, or first, second, third, or whatever. And maybe I'm completely wrong in that, but I just thought that was really interesting because if you're drafting one of these guys, you're sticking them either in left field or in your utility spot, and that's the only place you can play them. Which, are you going to take these guys out of your lineup anyway? No. But again, you're taking up a spot, and you're essentially looking at the auction. If you're going to spend $36 on Randy, right? I mean, you're probably not. I'm assuming you're probably not paying, or trying to pay for any of these other guys, right?
Sure, absolutely no. And I don't know, like I personally, I have two of those where they play all three outfield positions.
Yeah.
And I view them as very valuable. So I don't know if they're just kept more just because of how rare it is to have an outfielder that does that. Maybe you'll pay the extra salary if he costs a little too much.
Yeah.
And that's why we're not seeing it go into the pool. But yeah, I was really surprised how little of eligibility spread there is on these guys. I thought that we'd see a lot more, three outfielder guys.
Well, and I guess we can't really answer this question anymore because of all the positional eligibility issues with Fantrax right now, it sounds like. But I'm wondering if that wasn't the case, would we see more guys who are eligible at more positions? I don't know, because clearly, as we've seen, the Fantrax default positions are not our positions. So
exactly.
It'd be interesting to see that. Something I just saw Adam just said in chat is either guys pay $50 or teams will walk out spending $230. And then he asked if he sounded like Joe. And I think that's an interesting point based on kind of what we're talking about, because I think if enough teams don't want to pay the 50, I think there are a lot of teams who would be okay walking out of the auction not spending all of their money.
Right.
Because you look, again, not that this is the greatest example because none of our teams are set up like it, but Duke has essentially that every year, right? Like he only has to go into the auction to get like 2 or 3 players because the rest of his team, he doesn't have any of those big contracts, right?
Sure.
So if it's almost like a handshake, right, between everyone in the league to say, hey, we're not going to pay $50 for a guy, and you just stop bidding at 49, well, then all of a sudden, maybe salaries you do see lower. Maybe there's more, in the middle of the year. Now, to counter that, we get $360 during the year.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty pointless if you don't have some higher contracts, right? If you're getting out of the auction at
you're not going to
$230,
make a push.
Even if you'd have to put $100 worth of contracts. That's at least 3 or 4 top end guys. It's interesting. Right, I don't necessarily know again the answer to that question, but it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree. And if we're all spending less on players, does that make teams that are pushing even more powerful with a little? I mean, if there's $10 savings or even $15 of savings throughout the entire market, teams can stash that 360 a little more full of talent. So
does that change contracts too?
Exactly. Yeah. Like what happens down the road, I don't know. That's why this is so fun. I'm getting jacked up right now. But yeah,
it's very interesting, and
it is.
There's lots of lots of conversations that could come from something like that. Where I don't know. It's just very, very interesting. We'll have to see kind of how it works. I know just based on chat, obviously there's plenty of people in our league who would love to see those high prices. So, but we'll see. Okay, center field. I had put possibly the most shallow hitting position. Again, if you if you don't take into account catchers, I guess. they're just, when you look at this, the top end, obviously, I mean, Tatis, Trout, even Springer, right? Top 100 guys. A lot of people obviously high on Lane Thomas too. My assumption would be that his contract is going to be a good amount higher than it was prior to this year. But man, outside of that, it's tough to really project. I mean, I look at Buxton as someone who's watched him since he got drafted. God, that's just for him being the 6th highest outfielder or center fielder, that scares me. Like that just, to me, that screams position scarcity. If that's what we're looking at.
This is the year. This is the year
Oh
for
my God.
Byron Buxton.
No, that is atrocious. He's 30. Okay, he's 30.
I know.
Well, this is
We've been
not
saying
the
it for
year.
a long time.
Well,
We've been saying it for a very long time. I'm
I
just used to it now.
I literally just saw an article, was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, about how apparently it's the Twins' plans to have him be our starting center fielder on opening day.
I love it. Please.
That is
do it.
no, you do not love that. That is the dumbest thing you could possibly do.
Why does it matter? He's not going to play more than like a couple weeks.
That's
you
what
know?
I mean. So
It's
instead of him playing, 10 weeks, he's only going to play 6. And for Minnesota fans, that sucks. So I just
it totally
throw him
does.
at DH, never have him on the field unless he has a bat in his hand, and just call it good. And his career's a bust, and it's whatever.
Absolutely. I don't mind him just being like a pinch hitter and pinch runner at all times.
100%.
You get him one at bat a game, let him get a base knock, run, call it good. I mean, he might improve his WAR that way. I don't know, but
he could hit. He's a 30 homer guy. He could get there for sure if he's not not injured for 80 games out of the year.
Yeah, utilize Buxton the way that St. Louis used Albert in his last year.
100%.
You just throw him out there. Everyone cheers. They're like, we love this guy.
Yeah.
He does something cool, and he goes home.
Well, the
I
best
mean,
part
that's
about
absolutely
it
how it
is
should be done.
he's still fast. Like he can still steal bases too. So
Absolutely.
having him out there to do that is just critical. But anyway, super shallow. Not a lot of full-time help. Be very interesting to kind of see how that goes. But you said you agree, the most shallow position for sure.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I had forgotten catcher by this point, but I mean, as far as a position basis, what you expect out of your position, you don't have expectations for catcher like you do for center field.
Yeah.
Like if I'm paying a lot for Byron Buxton, he's being Byron Buxton, that's gonna suck. I'm gonna hate that.
God. Yeah. I could never do that to myself, I don't think. Okay, then lastly, for hitting positions at least, right field, I put this position as right behind center field as the most shallow hitting position. A couple of things have changed since then to maybe change that. It's not as shallow as it was a few days ago when I wrote that.
Sure.
But obviously has Acuna, who everyone loves. And then, after that, there's some depth in there. Kepler got dropped and added in there. Conforto got dropped and added in there. Benson got dropped and added in there. So there's
De La Cruz was one of them too.
De La Cruz. Yeah. So there are much more usable players than there were a few days ago, which I think helps this position in general. I think interesting though, tons of multi-eligibility here too. So, long term, are they actually right fielders, or did they just get enough to get in the right field?
Totally.
So that's something to obviously consider too. But
yeah, it definitely is deeper than center field because going farther down the list, like I'd be happy starting a guy much farther down this list than center field as far as feeling good about it.
Aren't terrible by any means.
Yeah, I mean, if I need somebody, I already have like a part-time right fielder. I can just combine these two guys and get a full-timer essentially on the cheap.
And multiple eligibility. That helps.
And multiple eligibility. So, if I'm trying to play a little ball action, I think that's absolutely doable down to the bottom of that list.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. All right, let's move on to the actual most shallow, even though, again, not as shallow as it was a few days ago. I mean, this is going to be
a bloodbath.
What people are going to talk about. I think in the probably during the auction for sure. Guaranteed on day one at some point we're going to hear how Cole is such a good deal because he's going to be nom for sure. I would assume. But I mean, as someone who has money, super happy to see him out there. Love that. because more options for me, obviously. I like where my staff's at right now. Again, another George Kirby shout out for Brendan, but I think it's really going to be interesting. It's honestly going to define the draft, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, totally. Wherever these top guys go, like Garrett Cole, I think probably decides it more than anyone, like more than Acuna maybe.
Well, it could even be that second tier though too, because as multiple people have brought up in the Discord chat before, like last year, right? The value of the top guys was great, even though you're still paying the upper 40s for them, right? The value of that was great compared to paying 20 something for a 60, 70, 80 ranked starting pitcher.
Sure.
A lot of different value there from a points perspective. So it'll be, I think that could really determine it, because Cole, I think we probably are all assuming he'll go at least what he went for last year, if not more. But then that second tier, like someone like Verlander, someone like Bieber, Javier, are they in the 40s?
And they're all very different trajectories of their
100%.
careers.
Or Giolito, like McKenzie, like all of these are like 3 years ago, spicy.
Yeah.
Right? Like super spicy. But now all of them kind of have different issues, different reasons to like be scared of them. But at the same time, they're the 8 through 12 best starting pitchers available. So like, are you going to need to pay for that?
Well, I mean, I'd be pretty kind of ticked off if I had to walk out of the auction with like a $20, Rodon or Pivetta, which is going to happen. I just know it's going to happen.
Yep.
Which, I mean, that's just how the market works. It's just going to happen that way, just because everyone's trying to play the waiting game. And when you do that, someone's left holding the bag.
Yep.
It's just how it works, unfortunately. But
I think
I'd be curious.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember. Jeff said something about starting pitching. Now it's fleeting me, of course, as I was thinking about it. But he had said something about I think the pitching and whether or not people are going to end up paying for it like we did last year. I can't remember exactly what he was saying, but it'll be very, very interesting to see. And again, a big decider, I would like to think. All right, then relief pitchers. Now, I'm trying to remember. I don't think there's a way I can filter out SPRPs, but or I say Sparps, but I guess most of these guys are just RPs, so we're okay with it. Just ignore Eflin. So a few decent options towards the top, I thought. Again, I think a couple of these maybe came out in the last week or so. But some actual true closers at the top for sure. So some good money to potentially be spent there. It'll be interesting to see, how the starting pitching market changes that if it does at all. But yeah, lots of good top end options, and then. Again, below that though, hard to know. Like, are people willing to spend for holds? It's such a volatile position. You never know. Like, even the top end guys, right? We talked about Hader earlier. Like, how is he really going to get all the opportunities? Is he going to get all the saves, hold, et cetera? It's so hard to tell. Yeah,
especially with the option like Presley already. Neris is gone, so it's like Hader doesn't just come in and fill that Neris role. Like, Presley's the one who gets the shove off, I guess, in some sort of way. But looking at this entire tier list, I would even say Bednar's probably the best available, because Clay's had so many blown saves last year.
Could be.
With options. He had a ton of saves, very high volume. It's hard to disagree with volume. But he would get rocked at like very frequently, very oddly frequently.
Well, and did maybe Gary paying for Hader for 3 years, like paying that salary, like does that set a different market, where
it could, but
those guys pay or get paid?
Yeah, I mean, if it pays off, yes. I mean, if Gary it makes the playoff run and Hader like electric, I mean, it's hard to say no to an elite reliever like that if he's working that well for a playoff team. But if it ends up being stuck with some random Craig Kimbrell type reliever, like modern day Craig Kimbrell, not like back in the day, but then we're looking at a different situation where maybe we're not paying for that. But there's so many saves available out there. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
But if I had to take someone, I'd probably go with Bednar at number 1 just because I was shocked that Diaz is so high in ADP after being on a much worse team than what he left when he got injured.
Yeah, I
And
mean, like, look at
also
these
not
guys,
pitching
God,
for a year.
between like essentially 100 and 200, right? I mean, you got 5
Yeah.
guys right there being drafted there. Another 5 below that. So
Yeah.
lots of
All
guys
closers,
being, yeah, lots of guys being drafted at that level, right? Like using capital to be spent there. So very, so interesting because is Pete Fairbanks going to be Tampa's closer all year? I mean, if I'm a betting guy, I'm betting no, he's not going to be their closer all year. But that's just because they're Tampa. So yeah, very, very, very interesting stuff. Anything else that you feel like you wanted to mention about player pool?
No, I think we knocked most of it out.
Okay, awesome. So, hopefully that was a good rundown for everyone. The last 2 pieces that we have here. Hope, I guess, as we were chatting about it, these were the 2 pieces we were maybe the most excited about, outside of obviously revealing the rankings. But this is the debut of, I guess, what we're going to call Cal's spicy tier list. At this point, some of you may get the reference, some of you may not. Cal, I'll kind of let you just, kind of define what you want it to be moving forward. But these last 2 things are kind of the things that, we want to make sure that we're continuing to bring throughout the weekly podcast that we do as well, along with obviously the rankings too. So Cal, I won't pull up the actual tier list yet, I guess, and I'll let you kind of describe it first, and you let me know when you want me to pull it up.
Sure. So it's basically inspiration from a guy on Twitter I follow, Barstool Big Cat. I'm a huge fan. I'd run through a brick wall for the guy. And every week for the NFL, he will release these kind of absurdist tier list rankings. And they usually have, various jokes and actual rankings of, the top to bottom talent level in the NFL. And I just kind of wanted to spin off of that. It's a very unserious thing. I feel like it'd be a good foil to, Tyler's very serious and well put together and thought out rankings and my, thrown together tier list. I thought it would be a good, play off of that. So
in celebration of that, I'm going to open up the drink I said I was going to be having during this. And,
all right.
It's going to be spicy. So, all right, you ready? You ready for him?
Absolutely. Fire it up.
All
right. So we have number 1 in the number 1 tier. We have Rich because of underpaid employees, and only 2 people in that tier, and that is Duke's Pirates and Steve Cohen. In the number 2 tier, we have Mo Money, Mo Problems. These are mainly teams that have average dollar per slot, ton of money to spend, and that's you got yourself, the White Sox, the D-backs, and the Braves.
No, I love it, and I gotta ask. I'm gonna ask you to clarify some of these sides. The Mo Money, Mo Problems, I think, makes a lot of sense. That I get that. I got to go back to the first tier though. Rich because of underpaid employees. Now I'm gonna assume that that's Duke because he has a lot of low cost players. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess I probably should add a little bit of context there, but I feel like it's like this looming Death Star we have over us. I thought we'd all kind of know, but yes, Duke does have employees on his team that are woefully underpaid, putting in a lot of work for him. And he does not want to give them raises. He doesn't give them anything. He says, nope, I'm paying you $8 per year. You deal with it.
I love it.
So kind of despicable behavior. I think he should probably be held accountable and we should probably tax him.
I love it.
But, oh well. Moving into the 3rd tier, we have less money, less problems. These are teams that still have a very high dollar per slot and don't have they just don't have a lot of spots to fill, but they have, a lot of money to use. And so that'd be the Cardinals, the Tigers, and the Marlins.
Which is interesting too. What we talked about before, Cardinals were kind of higher up on the actual rankings. Tigers were a little bit lower on the rankings. I think Marlins are kind of in the middle. So interesting to see that. Love it.
Yeah. And then we have all in zone as always. Sam is a pioneer, and it's selling Zavala cards for auction money. As we may know, Sam has a wealth of Zavala cards. Aaron Zavala, not the Sam one, who's rising up the rankings. Aaron. And hopefully he can liquidate those and maybe spend a little more on some starting pitching. And then we have a very large tier in the next one. for obvious reasons, and this is will not bid on Kyron Paris.
The best possible tier that you could be in, by far.
And very notably in that tier is the Dodgers.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll be very excited to watch that one.
The one team that fits perfectly into that tier list.
Yes. Next up, we have the newbie Evan in the tier list with has an Excel sheet. Not a lot of us have an Excel sheet. I don't think any of us do, but we know for a fact that Evan does. So that sets him apart from everyone else.
So incredibly funny story. And I should mention too that I didn't look at the final copy of this. I know you sent it to me over, and I just pulled it up. I didn't even get to look at the new tier.
Okay, cool, good.
So this is great. I'm getting the laugh straight away. So after Evan made that rant, or not rant, but after he talked about his Excel sheet and all that kind of stuff,
yeah.
I kid you not, I reached out to him because I'm always looking for people to, especially because Josh left, and I usually used him as like if I needed anything more for my power rankings, like to help me with formulas and stuff like that, he would be the guy.
Sure.
Well, since Evan said all that stuff, I reached out to him and I was like, hey, if you're interested and you have any ideas for the power rankings, etc., send them my way. And he was like, dude, I just want to be clear, like, I'm not good at Excel. I was like, oh my God, I was such an idiot. Because I took it for face value. And I'm like, man, it's the Minnesota way. I just trust people, I guess. It's just too crazy. So
guys, I figured out equal sum. Don't talk to me again. Oh man,
too good. All right, keep going.
Okay, and then after that, we have when is the first year player draft? We only have 2 in this list. Just gonna pretty much ignore the auction mostly. Tampa Bay doesn't have a ton of money to play with. They have a lot of picks though.
Yep.
A lot of picks.
Yep.
And Zach just has 2 slots to fill. He has $20.
He's always looking for a first year player draft.
Yes, he's like, okay, dude, we're done with this. Time to move on. Which is, I totally get it. I'd do the same if I had it nice and set up with 24 guys on my team. And then another tier. So glad we talked about
the irony. I know the irony.
I'm so glad. You brought him up. I'm like, yes. Oh. And this is Alan. Alan's so Rockies. Good. Every year, there's some optimism. There's hope. And then immediately by May is severely injured and may never recover again.
You don't know if they're going to keep playing or not. You might
get you have no idea.
Might get some bad.
Is this it? Is this it for him? So he definitely gets his own. And then another single tier is waiting for 2034, and we have the Marks Guardians. Considering he has not a ton of future capital. And also not a ton of money either in the auction. So kind of in a tough spot.
Yeah, he's still sitting on that.
And he's got a ton of penalties.
Yeah, he's sitting on that pile of draft picks he got 2 years ago, and he just traded away his whole team in year 1 and punted it away and won a game or whatever it was. And
look, I would punt whatever it took to win a championship. So goodness me.
I mean, look at Brendan. Brendan did.
Yeah, I mean, totally. For Mark to almost get there. I mean, good for him. I mean, he got there. I can't even get close to there. So shout out, Mark.
Yep.
And of course, in the 2034 category, I was just waiting around for it to happen. Is Shohei Ohtani. So I mean, Mark and Shohei are going to be good buddies for a solid decade.
Is there anyone else on the planet that is more motivated to just not work than Shohei Ohtani?
I know, dude. Are you kidding me? If my job said we're going to give you $700 million. If you just stick around here for 10 years, I would just be playing Minesweeper all day. I I would do nothing all day long. And they're like, it's guaranteed, by the way. You're going to get this.
Yeah. Just
like sick, dude. This rocks. And then the final tier, not a lot of people get this. I barely got it myself, but I was like, I know what I wanted as far as a vibe for this tier. And basically, this is a tier of people who are going to be scrambling for some type of just really crappy middle reliever that can maybe get a few innings. And I couldn't think of anyone better than Matt Bowman, a Cardinals reliever.
That is a great reference.
From 2017. And we're going to have a lot of Matt Bowmans on these teams. So God. They get their own tier.
Oh, my God. So many Matt Bowman. And I mean, hey, there's going to be plenty of Matt Bowmans in free agency, too. That's what Fabapalooza is going to turn into, is who can get the best Matt Bowman.
Yes, where is Matt Bowman? It's just the name of the game. Matt Bowman is how you win championships.
That is fantastic. Well, I I think based on anything else you wanted to add, I guess I should ask.
Oh
outside of
no,
that?
I'm pretty sure that's all I got. That's all my bullets.
So we'll just based on some of the comments, I think it's going over well. But yeah, we'll have to see how much you can if you can do this weekly or if it's got to be a quarterly thing or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll try. We'll try.
We'll definitely try to keep coming up with the great content. But awesome. Well, I'm going to go back just to the main screen here. Don't need to share anything anymore. So last piece of our pre-auction pod tonight is our last hot takes beforehand. Obviously, we hope that everyone who's watching now and everyone else who isn't or maybe is watching it later, hopefully you guys have enjoyed kind of us just throwing out some hot takes, every couple of days or something. The plan is to not continue to do that. Now we wouldn't have enough hot takes, obviously. But the plan is to hopefully try and have a hot take section that kind of ends every episode that we will do kind of every single week. And it'll be, hot takes about the upcoming week, lots of different stuff, etc. But for us tonight, obviously, this is all about the auction starting in just over 13 hours and 17 minutes. And so, Cal, I'm actually going to let you go first, and I will go second.
Okay. So for the hot take for the auction,
hold on, I got to interrupt you.
Yeah,
because
sure.
there is a special request in the chat for
Oh,
you to do
dude.
this in your Stephen A.
Why
voice.
is he doing this? I said, dude, I'm not gonna do the Stephen A. impression. Please don't do this to me. Okay, fine.
It is up to you.
All right, I'm gonna have to do it now at this point.
All right.
I haven't done it in months, so I don't know what's gonna happen here.
Hey, you freaking go!
But-
You just go all out. All
right,
out,
here we
brother.
go. Look, we got a couple things to go over real quick before I want to get into some real hyperbole or some discussions. There's going to be a couple things that happen in this auction here, but number one, it's going to be probably a relief pitcher is going to go off the board. They're not even going to know what hit him. You're going to be worried about Acuna, Garrett Cole, and boom, Garrett Clevenger gone. $2 off the board. That's it. I can't go more than that.
Dude, that is really good. That's really good. Genuinely, that's the cadence.
I lost it.
You got the cadence down perfect. That is so good, man. Oh my god. As much as it kills me, I'm sure your dad's gonna keep asking for it. So
I know.
we'll have to
I
come up
know.
with
This
some
is
kind of
a
like
horrible
Stephen A. segment
precedent.
or something. But anyway, so you're just to recap. Your hot take is that the first player you think that is going to actually come off the board is going to be a relief pitcher.
First player off the board is going to be a relief pitcher. Everyone's going to be kind of in the mad dash of all of it, and we're all going to be waiting on this clock to tick down. There's going to be a very not sexy reliever that's out there that somebody wants real bad, and they're going to get him. They're going to get him because no one cares about him.
It all depends on the noms, right? Like who ends up getting out there? Because if it is a lot of those higher end guys, I could see that, especially if the relief pitcher is a Matt Bowman. Chances are he's gonna get nommed, and his final bid will be done at 8 hours, and he'll just run it out, right?
Yeah, league winner Matt Bowman.
So yeah, seriously. Okay, so then my hot take is, and I'm hoping my fellow AL Central brethren are watching with me, but my hot take is that post auction, the AL Central will be the highest ranked division in our power rankings. And the main reason I say that is one, because it is the hardest division in the ABL. I don't think that can be denied now that we have a World Series champion among us. I know there's going to be at least 3, if not 4 of us competing again this year at a high level. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But that is my hot take, is that the AL Central is going to be the highest ranked division in our rankings, which we will probably release sometime closer to the season prior to week 1.
And I'll ask this question because I'll try to speak on behalf of the NL Central since they don't have a delegate here. But would you be willing to pizza bet this with maybe a representative from the NL Central should they choose?
Boy, that is a great question, because I haven't done a pizza bet yet.
Yeah, AL Central is currently 1-0 in division-wide pizza bets. So
Real? Oh, that's true. I got Brendan one.
yeah,
Didn't he?
yeah, Brendan absolutely smoked me. I don't know why I was talking my absolute trash to him, but I was like, dude, don't quit with the AL Central BS. AL West is going to absolutely take over. But this is when I had hope and ambitions. So big difference now.
Well, if anyone from the NL Central is interested, you reach out to me and I'll talk to the rest of the members of the AL Central and we'll
Sweet.
Maybe we'll figure something out.
I love it. I hope it happens.
All right. Well, Cal, thank you. Obviously,
Thank
as
you.
always, to many more to come. Hope all of you that are still watching enjoyed this. We'll maybe do one more. We'll certainly do one more. Like post auction. I think at some point.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting though, considering how many trades are probably going to happen post auction. Maybe we'll give it a couple of weeks or something like that. But we'll figure it out once teams are kind of more settled. We'll get the power rankings out prior to week 1 and then just kind of go from there week to week. Just so everyone knows our plan right now. We want to try to keep the shows to 30, 45 minutes. That's kind of going to be the goal throughout the season. Our plan is to do them on Monday nights, so everyone can kind of check in. Hopefully that'll be a decent night for everyone to be able to check them out. So feel free. I'll always post it in Discord like always. So just be on the lookout for that. But anyway, That's all we got. Cal, thanks so much. And we will see everyone next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Let's go, let's go. About to hit the gas for a minute, no cap, no limit. I attack till I finish that track, till I get it. Got my cash out liquid, never pass my limit. Too fast when I'm spitting, read it back, now they get it on. Flipping that switch as I'm hitting these bars like a gift. I spit like I'm sipping gold bars. So these kids, no kidding, I've been winning and sitting, getting my best like dinner while I'm hitting on a mission. Ooh, spicy, I know they like me, but I got a wifey. She be real nice to me, no one works like me. Got a different mindset, my rate is pricey. Got a different psyche, ooh, lyrics are icy. Living life nicely, very precisely. Living divinely, manifest wisely. All I know is that I've been living for the sightseeing. Been around the world for a visit, first fast ticket. Man, I'm in it, man, I'm winning. I don't have no limit. If I want it, then I get it. If you want it, then you get it. I ain't never done finished. I'm a giver. I've been giving first place. I've been winning 6 shots since winning, but I still keep ripping and I still keep hitting 2 ways. I'm splitting all in. I'm risking it all. Yeah, I don't ever fall. Yeah, but if I do, I get back up, stand tall. Yeah, I want it all. Yeah, a good life. I don't think small. Yeah, I'ma be big one day. See me take it off runway. My name up in light someday. Looking at a crowd that loves me. Yeah, I came here to play.
Life is what I'm choosing. I don't stop, I keep moving. Just watch me as I prove it.